All right, welcome to the quarterfinal round of Eco 2021 with the motion that this House believes that human beings have a moral responsibility to preserve the ecology of Earth, even at the expense of their own survival. In government, we have Mecosystem with Aza Oya Kuko as the speakers, and in Mendessz as opposition, we have Zul, Zafira, and Rosa. Without further ado, we will welcome the first speaker of government, Ms. Aza. Time is yours.
Am I audible?
Yes.
I will start my speech in 3, 2, 1. Ladies and gentlemen, our Mother Earth is currently facing a lot of environmental concerns. Climate change, global warming, acid rain, pollution, and etc. that affect every human, animal, nation, and this planet. Lots of people are still ignoring with the environment problem because they still don't have enough awareness to protect the earth. Even some people still think that climate change is something fake, even though there are already something like environmentalists nowadays. But we think that what they do is only just focus it about the campaigns and etc. But we think that the spirit of the society is still low. How we have proof of this? We think that the spirit of society in protecting environment is still low. Why? Because it shows that how people still don't want to sacrifice their financial over eco-friendly things, right? We also still see lots of exploitation in forests and etc. and how it's actually impact and trigger natural disaster such as wildfire and etc. Especially people that are uneducated, even though it's our job to protect the earth as a human being, right? I mean, let me give an example about how people are still choosing to throw rubbish in the river instead of buying a new trash can, or how fishermen are still trying to bump in the sea to catch the fish instead of use a proper facilities to catch them, right? It shows that how the spirit of society in order to protect this environment is still low, ladies and gentlemen. And also, here's the government. We don't want to be stuck with the status quo right now where people are really uneducated that are keep dominating and will keep destroying the world slowly. We believe that every people have a moral responsibility to protect their own homeland, which is why we're going to support dystopia. Dystopia is how humans are willing to sacrifice their survival, their wealth, their money for our Mother Earth to protect our ecology. What ecology we mean here is the natural sources, environment, living organism or non-living organism, for example, like forests, animals, and etc. For example, like how in the dystopia system, humans will give charity or money for reservation and etc. How is actually they will able to contribute to the people to the climate change and also the environment settlement, right? And also here I'm going to talk about three things. First, why it's actually urgent and justified for us to support dystopia, and secondly, what will happen if we use dystopia, and what will happen if we not, and thirdly, how we're going to reach our goal in the other day. So first, why it's actually urgent and justified. Talking about moral responsibility, why humans have moral responsibility to protect their earth. First, the fact that we acknowledge that we actually live here. Why humans have the responsibility? Because we actually the one who live here and we are relying with the amount of natural resources that actually exist in the earth right now, right? Humans eat, humans living by exploring the nature, how people hunt animals to survive, to eat, to daily life, how they use herbs, plants, and etc. for medicine and healthcare. It actually shows us how humans are really relying with the existence and the amount of natural resources in our earth right now, ladies and gentlemen. But what shows
Go,
that
please.
no, thank you. But it shows that it shows that how humans are really relying, and the fact that happened right now is that these natural sources are starting to extinct, are starting to decrease day by day. I mean, let me tell you about how the climate change issue that currently happening right now. We know that what happening in Australia, in Kalimantan, that how there are huge wildfire which destroyed, abolished lots of forests, which actually our oxygen supply, which actually our supply to eat, where we usually for vegans and etc. And what happened to the polar bears in the North Pole who are slowly to extinct because the fact that the ice is keep melting and melting, ladies and gentlemen. And in this case, it's really related to the human's characteristic itself, ladies and gentlemen. Why do I say this? Because let me tell you why wildfire exists in the first place. There are lots of reasons, not just because of the natural reason, but also the reason of human greediness to cut the trees without any consent, the existence of illegal companies that just cutting the trees without actually consent and enough enough consideration, right? Because the characteristic of people nowadays are likely to exploit more. Why do I say this? We think that people are really selfish nowadays. Why? Because people are money oriented. And for example, let's take the example about people in cities. People in cities are likely to exploit more. Why? Because the reason why they explore a rural area, the reason why they want to taking for granted what happened in rural area is because they want the rich natural sources like gold, silver, aluminum, and etc. They use it to facilitate themselves, right? But we think that they will likely to be selfish here. Why? Because every human have the nature to wanting to upgrade themselves, to wanting to upgrade their daily life, to wanting having a recognition in job field, to wanting to have a wealth, financial wealth, and also being rich, right? And how people are trying to impress each other. And it is the existence of uneducated people that we still don't want in our status quo. And it's also going to lead to uncontrolled consumption, which only going to damage our natural sources in the end of the day. Because imagine, ladies and gentlemen, if the amount of natural sources decreases, there will be something kind of competition between human to receive that natural sources. Why? Because not if natural resources is decreasing, it means that the existence is gonna be rare, right? It's gonna be something that rare that people gonna trying to find it, right? There will be competition between society, and we think that it will gonna create gap. Why do I say this? Because we think that the society that only gonna manage to receive and to access this natural source that's starting to be more rare and rare is only people that are privileged, people that are rich, people that already have money in the first place. So how about people that are unprivileged, that don't have enough money? You know that they're really relying on the nature. I mean, we know that people in cities they get daily life consumption from supermarket and etc. But people in village they use they come straight to the forest to pick fruits. They come straight to the sea to pick fish for daily life food. And how if in the end of the day this the natural resource will decrease it will actually going to harm them in the end of the day. So if we use dystopia, we hope people are going to be more aware about what actually happening in our world now. Because we think that our Mother Earth needs the contribution of all people because people are the one who are the controller of this and they're the one who manage these natural sources. How they able to take it wisely, but in the end of the day, they can do a counterbalance in order to protect it. Example, like how we're going to encourage make our people to actually focus in having the reservation. They want to sacrifice their wealth in order to the sake of their own future and their own people's future. So we think that people will likely to do this well because in the end of the day, I think that human will be the one to be sacrificed here. Human will be the one who at risk. Of course, people not want their children and etc. will sacrifice will suffer in the end of the day, right? And also we think that human will not gonna um, extinct in the end of the day, which we think that the government probably the opposition probably gonna mention, but how they're afraid that if humans sacrifice themselves, it's actually gonna make suffer, right? But we think that humans already have a coping mechanism, like how people humans already have intelligence to survive in this world, not like animals and etc. We know that animals don't have any brains and etc., which is completely different from the humans as well, and which is why we are so proud of course. Thank you.
Thank you to the first speaker. Now we'd like to call upon the first speaker of opposition to Zulkarnain. Time is yours.
Okay, wait a minute. Let me arrange my arguments first. And let me set my timer first.
Before you begin, could you please non-activate the sound of your WhatsApp? There's notifications.
Did I? Okay.
Yeah, I could hear the notifications in the background.
Okay, I already muted.
Okay, thank you so much.
I'm going to start my speech in 3, 2, 1. one problem is coming from the government side of the house. They will worry about how the exploitation and uneducated people are going to exploit more about the nature and so on and so forth, ladies and gentlemen. But I think there is kind of things is already like countered by the current mechanism. For example, like the current regulations about the foreign law protection and so on and so forth, ladies and gentlemen, that are going to educate for those kind of uneducated people to not do environmental damage and so on and so forth, about the exploitation and so on and so forth. I think it is already enough to counter those kind of people, ladies and gentlemen, and talk about it, how they are going to be. It's okay to it is okay to exploit ourselves. Then we need to protect the animals, and so simply because they don't have like counter mechanism to survive in current situation and so forth. I think it is immoral when the moment you are going to sacrifice yourself because of you think that the animals are already extinction and so on and so forth, ladies and gentlemen. Because of what? Because you have a family, you have for example a father of family, for example, you have children, you have a family, you have a sister and brotherhood that you are going to need to protect, ladies and gentlemen. What does it mean? For example, like there are type of people that like have a middle class, low class, and so forth, ladies and gentlemen, that they don't have a settled job and so forth, ladies and gentlemen, but they need to like donation for the protection for animal in sake of this narrative and so on and so forth, are going to be harm for their family and so on and so forth. So I'm going to tell you in my argument, ladies and gentlemen. My our stance disclaimer before I'm going to my substance argument against the motion doesn't mean that we exploit the nature, ladies and gentlemen, but that we regret the rising of narrative. The sacrifice yourself is harm, ladies and gentlemen. The problems is that every human has their own needs and necessity at the very first time, right? So that's why we want to send the narrative that the people need care about the environment, but not on obligation. Because of what? Because when the moment you once utilize the environment, that is your obligation for you to protect the nature in itself, ladies and gentlemen. What's the difference? I'll tell you later on in my substantive argument. My first argument talk about the justification. Why it is justified at the very first time. Let's characterize the narrative in itself, ladies and gentlemen. What's the nature of narrative? The obligation here, ladies and gentlemen, lead to the influence how the human being take any decision. As I said before, they just have money, for example, to accommodate their life, for example, but then they decide to go to the donations to protect the animals, for example, and so on and so forth, and put aside their basic needs and so on and so forth. Because of what? Because this is immoral when the moment this is immoral because as for several type of family, for example, it is really important their survival, ladies and gentlemen. For example, to continue their lifespan, fulfilling the basic needs, and also to pursue the better life. For example, like pursue the education and so on and so forth. Why is going to be suffer in the when the moment you trying to put the narrative in current status quo? First, they will not see how happy their life is, in gentlemen. The narrative also will going to be a new nuance of judgment, ladies and gentlemen. For example, like if you not donate for the animals and nature, the society will going to be judge you at the very first time because of you don't care about the nature, because of you at the when the moment you give a birth in the world, for example, you already obliged to protect to protect the ecology, life, and so on and so forth. This kind of narrative will going to be hampered for the lifespan of the human being in itself, ladies and gentlemen. Because of what? Because in the end of the day, you will not see how happy you life, but you will sacrifice your life for the ecology life at the very first time, ladies and gentlemen. Why then their proposal is going to be failed at the very first time? For example, like in current status quo, there are still people who has no choice at the very first time, ladies and gentlemen. For example, like burden the individuals to oblige to preserve, meaning that it's killing themselves, ladies and gentlemen. Killing themselves, for example, people in urban area, for example, that not directly get benefit of nature, for example, they spend for nothing to donation and so on and so forth, ladies and gentlemen. What I'm telling to this, ladies and gentlemen, if they want to donation, ladies and gentlemen, it's based their own consent and also willingness, ladies and gentlemen. What does it mean? This kind of willingness and also consent will going to be create sympathy and also empathy. Why it is better in another set, ladies and gentlemen, on how educating the society, ladies and gentlemen. Their needs are going to be they will not left out their needs and basic needs for their left out their own happiness, but also they have their own sympathy and also sympathy on how, for example, status quo, on how massive the campaigning socialization about the protect the nature and so on and so forth. And that's enough to educate the people on how to gain more sympathy and empathy, to gain in more donation and so on and so forth, ladies and gentlemen. In another side, also we can protect the human being by that mechanism of sympathy and empathy by the social media. influencer and also artists that they already influence the many of people and so on and so forth. At least we can survive in ourselves and also protect the animals in itself, ladies and gentlemen. But second, I'm going to talk about the why our proposal better, ladies and gentlemen. As I said before, in regards to school, there is a regulation for government for environmental protection. For example, the company want to build in the middle of forest, for example, they need to fulfilling the SOP, for example, like standard of procedure to build in the middle of the forest, for example. So in the end of the day, ladies and gentlemen, they have a moral obligation. In the undang-undang, for example, they already put the obligation and the rights, for example, to you need to do, ladies and gentlemen. This kind of undang-undang, for example, is already enough to educating this kind of company in the end of the day. Even if in the very first time they are going to break the rule, and simply they will going to be sanctioned by the government itself, right? So that's why in terms of educating those kind of companies better in our side. At least at least in terms of economy and so on and so forth, we have that income and so on and so forth, ladies and gentlemen. So that's right. Let's talk about another thing about the uneducated people, ladies and gentlemen. I think we cannot blame fully for those kind of rural local people that are exploiting the like the forest and so forth, because they have no choice at the beginning with, because the incapability of the government cannot provide the job vacancy, for example. So that's why the source of income that they have already just forest in itself, ladies and gentlemen. What we want to try to tell you is that, ladies and gentlemen, is that at least in our side, ladies and gentlemen, we are going to educate them in form of how the regulation current status quo. But secondly, we want to perceive the nature in how, for example, like the tribe in the rural area, for example, they want to colonize the mountain, for example, meaning that that is the inherent heritage, for example. This kind of things already exist in the rural area, ladies and gentlemen. This not all of the rural people are going to really exploit. But secondly, because they know at the beginning they just have a mountain and also forest, and logically they will not willing to cutting the illegal cutting all the forest in sake of resources. They are going to be negotiation and so on and so forth in order to continue their life, ladies and gentlemen. So that's why we beg to propose. Thank you.
Thank you to the first speaker of opposition. Now we call upon the second speaker of government. To Oya, time is yours.
Hi, am I audible?
Yes, you are.
Okay, I would like to start my speech in 3, 2, 1. Giving a moment of you as a human to be wise towards the earth, that is the moment of you giving contribution towards the earth to fix, for earth itself to fix their inside of resources itself, right? He responds towards the opposition side of the house. Opposite side of the house bring the idea that it's already a media, a media to promote the movement of this saving earth itself. But in our side of the government, it is not enough counterbalance towards the problem in our status quo right now, right? Because we acknowledge the idea not all the society in using social media is it's already educated enough to understand about the topic that the influencer brought, right? And second of all, sense of human from the very beginning, sense of human itself is still ignorant and selfish, and then still they still want to be the top of the human of the top of in the top, right? And that's why the idea of media promoting this movement is no more exclusive in the side of opposition. And then they bring the idea that every simple thing that and in our side, every simple thing that human do, it cannot it will harm the earth itself, right? We acknowledge the idea that the factory that human made, it's already damaged and spend most emission towards the earth itself, right? So you as a human don't need a bigger movement like you do exploitation, because from the very beginning, the small thing that you do is gonna impact the world in the end of the day, right? Jumps toward my argument. We live in a world where humans are in the top of food chain itself. Humans are from the very beginning are being controlled or being a controller of this of every aspect in the earth itself. Where they are control on how they're gonna be used every human resource, gonna be used every natural resources in order to gain their own satisfaction, in order to gain their goal as a human being itself, right? Do cruel harm to main to
POI, please.
do meaning in order to gain a goal, something like that, and cutting all over the tree in order to make a building like a building and etc. Those kind of activity are happen because the egoistic of human being itself, that they only want to gain their own benefit, and harming the other natural resources itself, right? We don't want this human to be ignorant and selfish in the end of the day. Why? For why why human need to and I will explain to you why human need to embrace the idea of they need to be more eco-friendly towards the earth itself, right? And first of all, humans are the one who live in the world, who live in the earth, and they spend their own the major responsibility of human are in the hand of human itself. Notice that human are the controller, and they're the one who gonna being a major impact towards the ecology of Earth itself, right? This is very immoral thing for you as a human for being egoistic and cruel in order to gain your own satisfaction itself, right? Because that is happen in our status quo right now. From the very beginning, ecology of Earth are being exploited by very abusive movement. Very abusive movement from the human itself, right? It's
POI
proof to
before
us
6.
no thank you. This proves to us that humans are very taking responsible for a long time, for a long time. And at the end of the day, if humans still being ignorant and selfish, it's gonna trigger the first tendency of it's gonna create the tendency of common tendency of common itself, right? The moment when natural resources are damaged by humans, that is the moment of human go for the disaster era. Disaster happen here because human are make their own because human from the very beginning they do exploitation and do
Okay,
small thing that will
before the
damage the earth itself. No, thank you.
sis,
And this gonna be and this is gonna be they're gonna be create their own competition
before
towards
6.
the other human itself, right? Because the interest of human that without thinking about the after impact in the future itself. So for example, humans searching for gold, they do cruel mining in order to fulfill their own demand, right? The only thing that they don't have any they don't give any counterbalance on how they're gonna do they're gonna do their own responsibility as a human itself, right? What's gonna be happen if humans still damage the earth in order to fulfill the life need is first of all it's gonna harm the water, it's gonna
Before 6.
pollution and air pollution and it create global warming and many other things in the future that gonna be impact towards the earth itself, right? Second of all, it's gonna create more competition between the human and earth. Prosperity will be harmful in the end of the day because we understand that sense of human being itself, ladies and gentlemen. They already have their own intelligence. They already have their own intelligence, which is it from the very beginning. It is the privilege of human itself, which is the tendency of human for exciting. It's lower than the environment itself, right? The moment when human are in the crisis, they will easily catch up and to find the solution itself. If they are go for the exciting, they will easily to find their own coping mechanism itself, right? And then I will explain to you why, in the other hand, animals and environment will be more easily to get harm towards the problem itself. Because animal and environment are innocent and don't have any privilege of thinking and easily exploited by the human itself. That is why the extracting of natural and natural resources will be easier to achieve towards the animal itself, right? Because they don't have any right to because they don't have any privilege to thinking on how do they find their own mechanism itself because they already exploited from the very beginning with the human itself, right? And I will explain to you what world without human being selfish and more prioritize the earth itself. First, human will be ignored in the end of the day and be irresponsible towards the problem in the status quo itself, right? They never give because from the beginning human never give any contribution on how and any counterbalance on how if they are in middle of crisis they will give they will give their own a way to manage all this problem itself. And in the moment when earth are damaged, it's gonna lead other problem. Such as, for example, it's gonna harm the natural resources itself, which is it will be damage all the animals, all the plants over the world in ending up with the disaster itself, right? And then lastly, it's gonna trigger a disaster like human will be die in the end of the day because their own fault itself, and then the climate change will be more it will be more damage in the end of the day, and that's why we are out to oppose the increase.
Thank you to the second speaker of government. Now we call the second speaker of opposition to Zafira. Time is yours.
Hello, am I audible?
You are. But wait a moment, there's some noise in the
wait.
background. Okay.
Hello, hello.
Yes, hi.
I will set my timer first. Okay. If you want to give me priority, please just unmute yourself. I will start my speech in 3, 2, 1. The first and the second speaker of the opposition team again and again mentioned about the worst case about the earth itself, like the global warming, like the ice keep melting and the fishermen bomb the sea or river because of want to get more fish. But we as the opposition team, we wanted to give we just wanted to give the responsibility results or giving any or doing any exploitation. They are not do not have any responsibility, the basic responsibility to take care about the earth, to preserve the ecology of the earth itself or the tangible. So we cannot generalize to all people have the responsibilities to preserve the ecology of earth even at the expense of their own survival, because everyone has their own background, they have their own economic condition and so forth so on. And also the for the environmental campaigns, but I would like to ask you as the opposition team, how they can donate for others, especially for environmental campaigns, where their basic needs are not fulfilled yet, and they are again and again with the case of the human itself, it
Zafira,
will be so
hello,
worse.
Zafira, before
Hello.
you continue, I paused the audio. I paused the timer because your voice is breaking up a little bit. Could you try again to speak just something?
Oh, hello.
Yeah. Because
Test.
it's just a little bit of you were beginning to sound robotic there. Could you perhaps move to a different space
Okay.
or something,
Okay,
or
wait.
adjust the mic? Hmm.
Is it okay now?
Yes, but sometimes there's just breakups in the audio. Okay, so we can proceed and try
Maybe I
again. Okay.
can change my device first.
Okay. We'll give you time.
Okay.
Sorry for the inconvenience, everybody, but we have to pause to make sure that we can hear her properly. Only 1 minute has passed.
Hello, is it okay now?
Yes, loads better. Thank you. Please continue. You have only 1 minute and about 1 minute 20, 1 minute 10 seconds on the clock. Okay.
Uh, can I start again or just continue the arguments?
You can continue. Continue from 1 minute on in your first
Okay.
argument. Mhm.
Okay. Okay. Uh, okay. I'll start again. Okay. They say that the idea that even poor society will donate for the environmental campaign is element. But as I said previously, that you cannot generalize all the society that have same conditions with the rich people that can donate for the environmental campaign, ladies and gentlemen. Because I would like to ask the government as the opposition team that how they I would like to ask the government team that how they can donate for others, especially for environmental campaigns when their basic needs are not fulfilled yet. They are cannot generalize that all people can donate, right? This is the responsibility of the government itself to fulfill the needs of the human first, like the basic needs not only about the food but also how to educate them to love environmental more, to provide job vacancy for them, to allocate in this industry and so forth so on. They can make a policy or take a responsibility that have more logically than just generalize all the people that can fulfill the responsibility itself to preserve the ecology of earth, ladies and gentlemen. And that's why donation based on sympathy, not only based on time sympathy, because okay, we understand that humans have a natural sympathy, right? But they are also have their natural responsibility to fulfill their right to live well, ladies and gentlemen. So we think that this is not this motion is illogically and selfish and immoral for the government to force all the people have a moral responsibility to preserve the ecology of earth while they are have the expense of their own survival, and they have the expense of their basic needs, ladies and gentlemen. Come to my arguments now. I'm going to talk about how is this narrative can change the human being itself. As the opposition team, we understand and realize that as the human, we take so many responsibility not only to fulfill our basic needs, but also to preserve our ecology of Earth. Yes, we understand about it. But what we as the opposition team gonna make this separation is how we can fulfill the moral responsibility to preserve the ecology of Earth while we are lack of food, for example, we are lack of clothes, we are lack of our house, ladies and gentlemen. And how is the human can doing such a moral responsibility to preserve the ecology of earth by not doing any utilization of the earth itself? Well, let's talk about the nature of responsibility and right. The nature of responsibility and right tell us that when we take the responsibility of something, we also have the right inside of them. The right that this nature means is the basic right of the human to get decent life, to get hidup layak, ladies and gentlemen. This nature explain of how human even have the responsibility to preserve the ecology of earth, still have to fulfill their basic needs first, like sandang, pangan, papan. If they cannot to fulfill their basic needs, at the end of the day, they will more dangerous, right? Because they will more damage the environment by exploiting the earth because they cannot fulfill their basic needs. So the humans, if we just if we are not force them to have a moral responsibility to preserve the ecology of earth, humans will utilize the earth or the natural reserve as they need, not as as the exploitation, because they just to fulfill their need, they just try to fulfill their basic needs like sanda pangan papan, as I said previously, not to exploitation because they are lack of that basic needs itself. So the humans already have their natural responsibility to manage which natural resource that they want to utilize to, that they want to use to. If the humans are too careful, or if the humans are too careful or scared to use natural resources, they will get so many bad impacts, such as the first is humans will scared to have more children because they do not want to use more natural resources. The humans will think that if I have a children, so my children cannot eat something from natural resources because I don't want to damage the preserve of the ecology of earth. So the humans will not will not have any children anymore, and also it will reduce the number of scientific, because the scientific will scared to damage the earth, even they are need earth or natural resources as their research media, which is it will give more bad impact for the environmental condition, because we need that research to develop more advanced method to save the earth, right? Like shopping bag from before of shopping bag we use plastic, free plastic of our warung or of our Indomaret or Alfamart, right? But there are the scientific things that it is so many plastic of the earth, so the scientific use the ground of the islands to menimbun the plastic, and then they will wait the plastic how long the plastic will reduce and so forth so on. So they will they will take the kesimpulan that they have to make a shopping bag than just using plastic from the Indomart itself. So we just can to damage the future of the scientific, the future of science that can develop the more of the more environmental campaign by the scientific itself. So that's all from me. Thank you very much for your attention. And I proud to propose. I proud to oppose.
Thank you to the second speaker of the opposition. Okay. Now we call upon the third speaker of government to Kukuh. Time is yours.
Hi, I'm audible. Hi,
Yes, you are.
okay then. Beginning my speech in 3, 2, 1. Government opposition have failed to understand that we don't care about whether or not is that person poor or whether or not is that person rich, right? The meaning of sacrifice is that not only you are willing to sacrifice just a little bit, right? It means that you are willing to even sacrifice your life, right? Even all of your economy, we still believe it is still justified to actually still help the ecosystem, even in the expense of all our economy, even if we are that poor, right? Why? Because understand it is okay for us to generalize all of the people, right? Understand that all people breathe the air made from the trees. All the people drink water from the water source made by the earth, ladies and gentlemen. We all are the same in the face of the earth, right? We are all still humans who still exploit earth, who are still breathing, who are still drinking water from those places itself, right? So we believe all people still have the same moral responsibility, even if they are as poor as team opposition is trying to argue, right? Second, on the idea of there are regulations, right? We believe that these regulations are not enough, right? Understand that the biggest carbon contributor is the factories, right? Understand most of the factories, even if they have the best, even if they follow the regulations, they are still the top contributors on on the carbon emission itself, right? It doesn't matter on the regulation itself, ladies and gentlemen. The moment humans are still focusing on the economy rather than the ecology, the carbon emission will still rise. Climate change will still exist at the end of the day, ladies and gentlemen. Therefore, the only way for us to save this is by willing to sacrifice ourselves. Ourselves itself, right? And third, on the idea of scientific and yada yada yada, well, the scientific will still exist, right? There are still other ways for scientists to actually research itself. But understand these scientists are very creative itself. There are also, for example, simulation itself. When we don't because of the advancement of technology, we can just do sometimes simulation in the computer without the help of the real thing itself. And lastly, on the idea that human will stop making kids, right? This is very assumptive, right? We still believe the human will still make kids in the end of the day because of, for example, lust and also the idea of survival. They will still exist, which I'll explain later, right? Moving towards my arguments, right? First, why is it more justified, right? Exactly because without the earth, we can't survive, right? Understand, even the moment Adam and Eve live in the earth, we will that they already have all taken from the earth, right? With less giving to them, right? All of the kids also follow on their footsteps on trying to actually exploit the earth itself, like, for example, for Lego logging and etc. Right? We believe that this shows to you that no matter what we do, no matter
POI.
no, thank you. No matter what we do, we still exploit the earth itself, right? Understand that the earth have never taken anything from us, ladies and gentlemen. They have always endured, right? They have never taken from us, right? Compare that towards us humans, we always taken care from the earth without even thinking whether or not will this harm the environment itself, right? Those kind of awareness are so lacking in the current status quo itself, ladies and gentlemen, right? But understand now, after all the years we've been exploiting the earth out of its natural resources, they are dying. Right now, in the current status quo, the earth is in its critical condition itself, right? We have seen many animals from the past have been going extinct, and many plants also going extinct, right? This shows you how critical the earth is itself, right? Understand that the most vulnerable actor in this kind of status quo is never the humans itself, right? Why? Because exactly the earth itself does never have any kind of coping mechanism itself, ladies and gentlemen. For example, if there's a fish going to extinct, they are not trying to. They don't have the ability to actually try to save themselves, right? They will just still swim and live along their day, right? Compare that towards human itself, right? For example, the moment humans are on the brink of extinction, we will do anything. We will sacrifice all of our lives just to make sure that we survive, right? And we also have the economic capabilities and the technology advancement to actually survive those kind of things, right? For example, like the moment we are in the brink of extinction, like the movie Interstellar, we build space rockets, or not just like in the fan fiction and stuff, right? For example, the moment the corona outbreak happened, we are willing to sacrifice even isolating the whole city of Wuhan, right? This shows you humans also first have the intelligence to make sure that they survive at the end of the day, and second, they also have the technological advancements to make sure that they will sustain of extinction itself, right? Which shows you that the earth is the most vulnerable actor, and there will always be a coping mechanism, right? And talking about the poor people, right? At least that's not what they said. They are at least government, right? Compared to towards earth, earth doesn't have any kind of coping mechanism, right? There are no one to save the earth except the humans. Therefore, we are the ones who are responsible because we also take from them itself. And we are the only ones who save them, right? Lastly, war status quo is not enough, right? Understand, we still see many harms towards the ecology itself, right? Even if there are so many regulations such as regulation, but the carbon emission is still rising year by year, right? This is because the reason is because how the stubbornness of government itself, right? Understand, even if they know how harmful it is, they will still cut the forest. They will still bring more factories just to make sure that they become richer itself, right? They still do it. Why? Because exactly there are limitations towards this. What kind of limitations? The limitations of economic and political interest, right? For example, for example, the United States of America is willing to sacrifice all of its men in the Middle East just to get the oil, right? That this shows to you that the limitations of economical and survival will only harm the earth itself, right? Compare that towards us, where we are willing to sacrifice our survival itself, will make us focus on the most important thing, which is to make sure that the earth survive at the end of the day, ladies and gentlemen. Understand that the earth resources are finite, right? At the end of the day, there will be time that we as humans will get the bad impact towards it, where we are unable to actually get the resources, which you can also lead towards for example, fighting from other humans, right? We believe the narrative coming from God where they only focus the economy also is implemented towards the society, right? Where we also see society is still profit oriented, it still throws rubbish just because they're lazy, not because of something urgent itself, right? And so thus saving the ecology can only be achieved under our side of the house because we don't have any kind of limitations towards saving the ecology, right? We can save the earth because that is the most important thing towards us, not the economy and etc. And that is why we are very proud to propose this motion. Thank you.
Thank you to the third speaker of governments. Thank you. So now we call upon the third speaker of opposition. To Rosa, time is yours.
Yes, I'm here. Am I audible, everyone?
Could you try again, please?
Uh, Hello, I'm here.
Okay.
Okay. Wait, give me time to set up my speaker timer. Um, um, okay, so I'm going to start my speech in 3, 2, 1. Ladies and gentlemen, we believe that it is very immoral the moment when you put a lot of big burdens to every child that is just born to keep the ecology while you have not get the benefit of the environment at the very first beginning. It is very immoral and it is very hard at the very first beginning. Several clarification that is going to address for the government team the moment when they are too focusing on how the human at the end of the day is going to have this kind of big obligation, but they are neglected the idea of how at the end of the day human have uh, the for sacrificing yourself, which is the second wording of the motion, which is at the expense of their own survival. But they just saying that people or human have this instinct or survive, they can sacrifice and so on and so forth. Ladies and gentlemen, we believe that they are neglecting the burden of proof to further extend and explain what do they mean by this wording for the motion, for the survivability of the human in itself. Now let's assume that the expense of survival here means that human will do anything for the sake of your responsibility or take care of the ecology. It means that first you realize that we currently is overpopulation, ladies and gentlemen. Thus adding more human in the form of is form of hampering your ecology. Thus many women at the end of the day do not want to born any children because because simply you do not want to add more human in the earth, ladies and gentlemen. You're okay then with human race is going to be extinct because you need to take care or fully focus on the environment, ladies and gentlemen. It is very problematic. Why? Because first, you as human, you're not being responsible for yourself and your own community. But second, your happiness will not access because of that. At the end of the day, your life will only full of anxiety and haunted by your obligation. But also, it is the bad idea of the we believe that the idea of taking care of the environment is still manageable, even if you do not give this bigger burden, even from at the very first beginning you born, ladies and gentlemen, because we believe that the idea of self-awareness, idea of self-love to the idea of love to the earth is something that can be nurtured, ladies and gentlemen, something that can be get through the time, ladies and gentlemen. When you realize that you are gaining so much benefit from environment, for example, then you have more, empathy and sympathy to actually take care of the nature in itself, ladies and gentlemen. Uh, and this kind of thing is very good under our side of the house, ladies and gentlemen. And because of we can rely on this self-awareness, ladies and gentlemen. Because first, we believe that self-awareness is there, ladies and gentlemen. We see a lot of environmental group in today's condition are fighting for these, ladies and gentlemen. And also the progressivity are there. More people are moved to plastic straw to the more aluminum straw, for example. People are moved from single-use plastic to reusable plastic bag, for example, ladies and gentlemen. And more government is having the regulation that actually more taking care of the environment at the end of the day, ladies and gentlemen. That's why talking about the idea of survivability under both sides, we believe that under the side of the house, the chance of the human race to extinct is there, ladies and gentlemen, since you do not really want to born any children anymore because of for the sake of commitment to ecological by do not want to add more human, for example. But under our side of the house, yes, we also admit there is a chance for human to exist, ladies and gentlemen, because of our behavior in consuming the natural resources. But understanding the ice melting in North Pole, for example, Kiribati Island is already being seen, for example. But at least, ladies and gentlemen, under our side of the house, first, we believe that people are already afraid of not be able to continue their life, ladies and gentlemen, because in under our side we have the concern to continue our life and survive, ladies and gentlemen. In the rest of the house, they do not concern to life, they do not want to survive, ladies and gentlemen. All their focus is they want to keep the environment at the very first beginning, ladies and gentlemen. Under our side, if people only still want to survive, then people will afraid to lose the SDA, ladies and gentlemen. That's why they will have urgency to become more less consume and so on and so forth, ladies and gentlemen. That is going to create better understanding toward keeping the environmental in itself, ladies and gentlemen. Now let's talk about human exploitation, ladies and gentlemen. The moment when the government side of the house said that if we do not put that burden, then we're going to, more to exploit the nature, ladies and gentlemen. We're not denial or we're not neglected this, ladies and gentlemen. The possibility of human to exploit the nature is there, ladies and gentlemen. But we believe that this there are already counterbalance mechanism coming from the government that already exists in status quo, ladies and gentlemen. Take an example on how this exists under like analysis dampak lingkungan or more stricter regulation that industry that is being exploitative do not get izin usaha, ladies and gentlemen. And current issues around of environment is already arise around the world, and people get have more and more attention to these kind of issues, ladies and gentlemen. Now let's talk about the nature of obligation at the very first beginning. We believe that the nature of obligation of responsibility in itself can be the punishment. Like it is like when you have obligation to do something, you do not fulfill that, then you're going to get to be punished, ladies and gentlemen. But see that government side of the house do not manage to talk about how if people do not do their obligation, ladies and gentlemen, what kind of punishment is not being explained even for the rest of their speaker. But under the rest of the house, then we will first obligation is bad because you give the high expectation of each individual to be keep environmental even from at the very first time you are born, ladies and gentlemen. That is not justified because first for children, not to mention that you are not being consented to be born at the very first beginning. First, second, you're not also consented to have that big responsibility to keep the earth, ladies and gentlemen. But third, you do not get the benefit from your obligation at the very first beginning because the moment when you born, you obliged to keep the environment. Well, you have, you do not get benefit from it yet, ladies and gentlemen. That is going to be very, very bad under the rest of the house, ladies and gentlemen, because of the form of protection that you are going to give is protection that is not full-heartedly, ladies and gentlemen. It is not coming from your own conscience, your own awareness, ladies and gentlemen. It is going to only because of your obligation and so on. Then the human is going to have, lose their purpose of life, ladies and gentlemen, because simply because they do not focus on their own survivability, but more to the earth in itself, ladies and gentlemen, which is it actually should reverse in on how earth itself is going to use for the continuity of the human, ladies and gentlemen. Under our side of the house, when we rely on the self-awareness, we believe that it's going to be better, ladies and gentlemen, because the moment when you realize and you're afraid that you are going not to be survived because of the SDA or natural resources is natural resources tidak cukup, for example, then you're going to be have that incentive and do better and do full-heartedly, ladies and gentlemen. Now let's talk about the worst case scenario. Even if there is the people that is not aware with the environmental, why it is okay, ladies and gentlemen, we say it is less likely to happen since we have education and so on and so forth. But second of all, even if people is that ignorant, at least under our side of the house, we normalize that people who want to survive by utilizing the natural resources and so on, and people can still survive for a longer time. And I beg to oppose this motion. Thank you.
Thank you to the third speaker of opposition. Now we'd like to call upon the reply speaker of opposition to Zulkarnain. Time is yours.
Okay, am I audible?
Yes.
Okay, I'm going to start my speech in 3, 2, 1. One main point coming from the government side of the house, they are trying to assume that every people that have born already, for example, that they are when the moment they grow up, they are going to be exploit, like the earth and so on and so forth. That's how evil the government side of the house describe the human being in itself, ladies and gentlemen. I think it is immoral when the moment you are going to be sending the narrative that okay, you need to be kind in form of you donating your sacrifice, your survival sacrifice, your survival harmful to the environment and so on and so forth, ladies and gentlemen. This kind of thing will never justify at the very first place, ladies and gentlemen. There are 3 points that I want to like point out in my conclusion. First, I'm talking about the narrative, where the narrative are going to be benefit and where the narrative are going to create more awareness and so on and so forth, ladies and gentlemen. In our side, we create the narrative that we create the narrative when the moment you are already born, you have already taught in the school and also you in the society and so on and so forth. You need to love your environment and so on and so forth. In another side, you need to in another side along the time, ladies and gentlemen, you are going to have a sympathy and idea of the idea of donation India at the very first time, because of already in social media and artists and celebrity already like endorse about the environmental issue and so on and so forth, ladies and gentlemen. So so in the end of the day, our narrative, it's going to be really concerned by your heart at the very first time. The problem coming from the narrative, coming from the government side of the house, is that they're trying to pursue that every human, when the moment you are just give birth, for example, they already have a responsibility to donate their financial and their life, for example, towards the environmental issue in science of, ladies and gentlemen. So this kind of thing is going to be more when the moment the children is not really like gain benefits of the environmental, and they didn't even consent to give a birth in the very first time, right? So that's why it is immoral in that kind of narrative. But secondly, talk about which mechanism can preserve the ecology of Earth better, ladies and gentlemen. In our side, we already proved to you on how the terms of donation are going to be better in our side, and also how like the awareness are going to be better in our side as well, ladies and gentlemen. The problem coming from the government side of the house, they're trying to say is that the awareness is going to be happen when the moment you are sacrifice yourself. These kind of things, meaning that you need to kill yourself to prove your love, ladies and gentlemen. This kind of idea or narrative are going to be really hard to do, ladies and gentlemen. For example, like let's take a look for the type of background family. For example, they have a unprivileged people. They have a family. They have a kids and so on and so forth. They need to protect at the very first time, ladies and gentlemen. So that's why the idea of preserving, meaning that they need to sacrifice one another to another, ladies and gentlemen. So that's why the preservation coming from the the government side of the house is not justified at the very first time. But lastly, talk about the natural human being, ladies and gentlemen. As I say before, as we all explained to you, in our side, ladies and gentlemen, the natural human beings are already there, ladies and gentlemen, on how along the side they are going to be educated on how to love along the side, along this in some case they have no choice to begin with, right? Because of there is no job vacancy and so on and so forth at the first place, ladies and gentlemen. So that's why they exploit the natural resources. But at the very least, at least when the moment they exploit exploit the exploit the natural resources, at least in our side, there is chance of survivability in our side, ladies and gentlemen, to continue their life and their family, ladies and gentlemen. The difference coming from the government side of the house, okay, they have no okay, they already begin with the responsibility. In the end of the day, there is no chance of their survivability in their side, ladies and gentlemen. Because of why? Because of the commitment that already excessively harm themselves, and also the commitment are already doctrinized until they don't want to have a children in sake of they want to lose the SDA, and also exploit the afraid to exploit the natural resources and so on and so forth, ladies and gentlemen. So that's why in those kind of 3 point we deserve to win. Thank you.
Thank you to the reply speaker of opposition. Now, to close the case for the government side of the House and also to close this debate, we call upon the reply speaker of government. To Azza, time is yours.
Am I audible?
Yes, you are.
I will start my speech in 3, 2, 1. Okay, things I'm going to clarify again that the opposition might misunderstand, right? So the survival that we've been here is not survival that all humans will actually gonna give their life, right? But I mean, the humans will gonna be die in the end of the day. No. What kind of survival is that? How we gonna make how these people gonna at least protect and have the awareness to protect and also contribute in the how to solve the environment, right? And also, we already told you from me and my second and my third how people will gonna survive in the end of the day. Why? Because humans have something called intelligence. They have intelligence, how they are managed. They have managed the ideal of thinking about how to think about a solution, how they will survive in the end of the day, right? We already told you that who will extinct, who will not survive in our side is the animals and also and also the plants and also the other ecology system that are being raised at right now. Because why? Because they already told you that they don't have any coping mechanism, unlike human itself, right? The problem with the opposition is how they're really lacking of explanation about how their status quo is already enough, right? They already told you that, oh, they're already environmentalists, reboisation, and etc. Well, yes, I already explained in the first bit that I acknowledge the existence of environmentalists, reboisation, and etc. campaign and etc. But the problem is that how there is still a low spirit for humans to protect this environment. Why? Because the fact nowadays is that a loss of egoistic people that still prioritize themselves over natural sources. Then they really prioritize economy and financial over natural resources. I already told you about how people are still throwing rubbish in the river instead of buying a trash can, or how people are bombing the sea instead of using a proper facility because they want something instant and cheap. And it shows us how it's actually affect and the earth and also impact into natural disaster, which is actually gonna come back to human the problem itself, right? It shows us how humans is still not enough in the spirit of their protecting the environment itself. How our Mother Earth is damaged and natural resources decreases, and it's our moral responsibility as people to pay attention, right? So the thing that opposites are really glorifying is that how poor people that we cannot force them to do this, right? But my third already told you that even poor people still have moral responsibility. We all drinking the same water, eat the same fruits from the forest. We all taking and exploit something from this earth, while earth never taking anything from us. And I also already told you in my first speech that poor people is gonna be the one who actually suffer in the end of the day. How there will be something called competition and gap between society. If natural resources decrease, then it will be only make the natural resources become rare, and people will compete in the end of the day. I already told you that the one who will have the more privilege are rich people who actually have money, because right now you can actually buy anything with money, and the one who will be at risk is poor people in the end of the day. So we think that we managed to win this clash. Why? Because we already proved to you how poor people are still gonna suffer in the opposition model, and how natural resources will receive more damage in the opposition model rather than us, right? And I also told you that how humans are not easily extinct, unlike animals who don't even have a coping mechanism. And also, we already talked about how humans have really relying on these natural sources. They don't give us any alternative from the opposition. There's no explanation about what do they do if these natural sources gonna be extinct and gonna be rare in the end of the day. We already told you about the possible chaos, the possible gap, the possible competition between people that will really damaging and unfair for the poor people. But they don't give us any counterbalance and what kind of thing that possibly they're gonna do and already enough in their status quo and their own sovereignty. Which is why we think that we are more have a plus point in this, how we manage to actually capture our poor people needs, also how we manage to actually protect our own earth, which is the problem right now, and which is why I'm so proud to propose. Thank you.
Thank you to the reply speaker of government. And that concludes our debate for today. For the quarterfinals, this is a silent round, so we will not be announcing the results straight away. Thank you for your debate, guys. And you can proceed to the main room while we here as the adjudicators will share our results. And yeah, again, thank you very much and the best of luck for both teams. Okay,
Thank you.
thank you.